I've got a pitch sitting on my computer right now for a show that I want to produce. Sort of a really intimate, like it's all about getting that groovy. Like, okay, so when I was a kid, well, not even a teenager, I think it was in university. I was in university, and there was this. I talk about it all the time because it's one of the coolest experiences I'd ever had. So I studied fine arts. I'm a fine arts major, and so our building was we sort of housed all of the creatives, right? So the drama kids and the music kids and the dance kids and the visual arts kids, all sort of kids. These are university students, adults. But I don't know. I think being a creative is kind of like you're just a kid forever, anyways, right? So we all sort of lived in the same house, like we lived under the same roof, and there'd be exhibitions and weird shit going on all the time. You'd go past and there's something on display and something. Anyways, there's this little mini gallery. I don't even think it's there anymore. Last year I went to go visit my university. I had submitted. There was a pitch competition for startup companies, and I'd sent in some paperwork and got called in for an interview. Didn't get the spot, but that's okay. It's all good. But it was kind of cool just to be. I haven't been on campus in years, and they had tons of like. What's funny, what hasn't changed I'm not even going to say how long it's been, but what hasn't changed is the amount of friggin' construction that goes on. There's always construction on that damn campus. So anyway, so I went there and I went through my old building. And I mean, it hasn't changed, but it has, like it's funny. Nostalgia is a funny thing, eh? Anyway, so back in the day, there was a gallery where the visual arts used to use this space to host, like, for I don't know if it was for graduate students. I think it was for undergrads, actually, right? So they get to display their work in this gallery. One of my favorite exhibits, and I think about it to this day. I feel like it's inspired my whole life. So I don't even know who the girl is. And I do tend to think it was a girl who did this display because, I mean, I don't even know that for sure, but I've always in my mind thought that this was a girl's work that I was seeing. But for whoever you are, forever, you've been an inspiration to me. I just want you to know that. So anyway, so I'd gone into this. So what she did, basically, it was this beautiful, she transformed the entire space. I mean, from top to bottom, wall to wall. It was like walking into another dimension. She just completely transformed the space. And it was like moving through her mind, right? It was like looking at her life, and the walls were covered in like this pink, I don't even know what it was. And there were these images, and some of them were blown up to be huge, and some of them were tiny. And there was just color. It was like walking through somebody's dreams. It was beautiful. It was breathtaking. It was transformative. And to this day, when I think about that feeling, it was like she'd invited us into her world in the most intimate way, and it was just perfect. And so so I never had an opportunity to do that with people. Now I've been dancing since I was, I don't know, actually. My aunt says I've been dancing since before I could walk. So I've been dancing a long time. And I just do it for myself mostly. I just sort of this is a space that I get into. It's a headspace. It's a feeling. It's a thing. It's a groove, right? It's a groove. And for me, it's home, it's cleansing, it's spiritual, it's it centers me, all of this stuff. And, I mean, is it a coping mechanism? Maybe, sure, yeah. Is it an escapism? Yeah, sure, absolutely. Cop to that, 100%. Um, um, but it's, I think, an integral part of my philosophy of me, you know. And I don't know that it has anything to do with the world or performance or any of those things, but it's just how I relate to myself, And when I decided to study fine arts, it was, in as much as this stuff has always been, I think, important to me, that was a really bold move on my part to go in that direction, because there's just no certainty where performance is concerned. There's no security. There's no nothing. You're especially coming from where I come from. I don't have anybody in the industry. I don't have any mentors. I don't. It was just sort of, I have this thing that I do. It's one of those things that's meaningful to me. And becoming a fine arts major was, I've said this before, a form of declaring myself, to the world. This is what I am to the world. And so that's what it was, But I had never really, like, when I got my degree, I did end up working in media, but I ended up working on the other side of the camera. So we're not as a performer, but as a, really working the business side, like administration, and I eventually got to work as more of an executive arm, that sort of thing. And so that was great. I don't look at that in a bad way, actually, at all. I think it was the type of education that artists rarely get. So I thought it was very valuable. Anyways, so, the thing, so at some point I'm working in my capacity in media, and I'm learning about the business. I'm reading contracts. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And somewhere back here, somewhere, somewhere in back here, so I'm hearing, this isn't the thing. this isn't, so on the surface, I feel like I'm doing really well. On the surface, I'm getting the promotions. I'm sussing out the landscape. I'm learning. But somewhere back here, I'm like, this isn't it. This isn't it. Now, I don't mean that this isn't it in that I don't like media or I don't like business. It's none of those things. I like media, I like business. It's not that. But there's part of me, like, so as an executive, what I used to do, I'd meet producers. I'd meet people who were out there doing projects. Like, that's what they did for a living. That's what they did. Right? They told stories for a living. And I mean, it was a great job. And again, maybe one of the best educations, hands down. But it was not creative. It was not creative. And, when I first graduated with my degree, and I was like, okay, and, you've got to start to make sense of how are you going to live in the world. And, I was going on some auditions, but, I didn't have a lot of money. I didn't spend a lot of time in the studio because money was tight, so I needed a full-time job, and this, that, this life, right? And but what I really wanted to be able to do, more than even auditioning or getting hired for a show, was putting on my own shows. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to put on my own shows. So at some point, and back then, I think, I'd always wanted to be like an independent, a creative independent. And at that time, the company, I thought I was gonna um, you know, run a dance company of some kind. But then I learned more about the business, working in the business from the business side, and then I thought, okay, well, maybe that's not exactly what I want to do. But a few years in, let's say 5, 6 years in, the thing started back here with it's time to start thinking about your stuff. It's time to start thinking about your stuff. What are you going to do? And so that's what I started doing. That's what I started looking at and thinking about and debate, piecing together, and not because I didn't love my job, but because there's something incomplete, something that just wasn't finished yet. That was, so when I finally had the opportunity to start to venture off and look into what it might be like to do my own thing, what would this thing look like? And I didn't go right to dance, or maybe I did. Did I? No, I don't think so. I sort of thought about doing something in the creative fields and helping creative people because I felt like there was a gap there. There was something, not quite right there. Because I felt like a lot of creative people might not ever get to, prime time, or might not ever get to Hollywood, or might not ever get to, the Big Apple, but they're really, really decently creative and really should be working in some capacity. So I started with this idea of this community thing, but I didn't really know how to build it. And I was really doing a lot of stuff by myself, just sort of by myself and isolated by myself. And eventually that kind of morphed and shifted into another type of project, and into another type of project. Then eventually I was building sites for people, and this doesn't make any sense. And don't get me wrong, again, all great education, right? I think everything is, beneficial from a learning perspective. But this didn't really connect to this thing back here. And it took me a long time, a really, really, really long time to figure out what that was. What is that? So this last year, which has been really challenging, but this last year I was like, okay, I've been digging, I haven't been digging, no, correction. I have been just flailing hopelessly, tumbling head over feet over head, just hopelessly out of control down this friggin' rabbit hole. And at some point, something crystallized. And it had to do with this thing. So this thing I've been doing my whole life, this thing that I've been doing my whole life, like I spend time, I listen to music, I move, I jam, I do, that's what I do, right? Like I don't, and I love words, and I love that space, So I thought, okay, maybe there's something here. Maybe there's something, and I kept, like all the time, kept coming back to that art gallery display from university with that girl who just sort of invited us into her mind, into her memories. And I thought, maybe that's something, maybe that's, because Bohemia House, but that's where I live, right? The Bohemia House is up here, literally, where I live. That's my home, kind of, sort of. What I'm trying to create, what I'm trying to build, I'm trying to find my home, And so I thought, well, what if I could do that, sort of? invite people into, maybe not Bohemia House, because Bohemia House is huge, right? It's massive, but into a space, right? And I know this space. I live in this space, and I know that other artists, other creatives live in this space too, you know. And we could come together and we could do this thing, right? And it's just this thing. It's just this thing, you know. And it's not about you know, making it complicated. It's not about making it hard. Just making it good, you know. Just making it feel good, right? And to have people kind of just sit in and vibe with you, and walk away. And I want that feeling that she gave to me, that space, that thing. I think even when I remember this, walking through this and getting giddy, like getting giddy, and you know, and it's contagious. You know, it's like when you watch a performer and they're in that space and it hits you and it just it's viral and you want to go, you know, you want to you know, uh and you just want to spread that around, right? So I wanted to, that's what the Bohemia Room is to me. For me, it's this inviting people into this space, you know, and we all get to hang out in this space together, just you know, feed each other this energy, and then we can go back out into the world and slay. Right?